Eagles safety Malcolm Jenkins, he joins us now on the 6. Malcolm, Chris Long putting his arm around you as you raised your fist during the anthem has become sort of a lasting image. You said that it changed the dynamic of the conversation. How so?
Well, I think, obviously starting from last year with Colin Kaepernick all the way through the first, week of preseason, this has been primarily, done by black athletes. And there's been a call and a challenge to, white athletes to also use their leverage and their privilege and platform to stand up for the causes that their, fellow teammates have done. And Chris obviously was the first person to do that. And I think, in light of what happened in Charlottesville and all that's going on in the country, when we took in the conversation between hate and racism, I thought it was timely and definitely very, very impactful.
Now, Chris said that before he decided to show that show of support, that you and he had some conversations. What were those conversations like?
Yeah, he was very, very aware that, this is something that obviously I had been doing since last year. He didn't want to do anything to take away from, my demonstration. He didn't want to draw too much attention to himself. And so really we just had a conversation about what the message was that he wanted to get across. And that was, he felt like that, white men and white people need to begin to position themselves as allies when you talk about the conversation of equality and racial justice in this country. And he figured that just simply holding his arm around me, could take care of that, showing that, he has his own thoughts and feelings when it comes to the anthem. But when it comes for what I'm standing for, he's definitely in support.
You mentioned Colin Kaepernick, Malcolm. One of the most frustrating parts of the conversation about Colin and his continued unemployment was the people who said, oh, he's a distraction. Nobody wants that distraction in their locker room. Given the images like you and Chris Long, and we saw Justin Brett and Michael Bennett, Khalil Mack and Derek Carr, don't those images fly in the face of the idea that these demonstrations are locker room distractions, given the type of conversations you guys are having behind the scenes?
They do. And I think that's part of the frustration from the guys that are speaking up about this, is that the amount of silence from players and coaches, GMs, and ownership about these issues give a false perception to the public that, that people don't care about it. When in all actuality, we have these conversations daily, and guys in the locker room are frustrated and want to figure out ways to help. And so I think this does, obviously counter those arguments that, these are things that guys care about, white and black, and hopefully we can continue to use our platforms to change that, and hopefully more guys speak up.
Now, along those same lines, there's also a number of people who believe that no police want to see reform or want to see justice, just as all veterans are offended by the idea that you guys are somehow disgracing the national anthem. I don't know if you saw it, but the New York City Police Department, several members of that department, they held a rally on Saturday in Brooklyn in support of Colin Kaepernick. How does a police rally in support of Colin Kaepernick sort of impact this overall discussion you guys are having?
I think it starts to break down the distractions that we've had, that the fact that, you've had members of our armed services come out in support of Colin Kaepernick and say that they don't have a problem with his stance or any of the protests, and that's what they fight for. People try to call them anti-police, or whoever's demonstrating anti-police. You have police officers coming out in support. Even the coalition that we have of players around the league that have been working on criminal justice reform have been labeled as anti-police, when in fact a lot of us have done ride-alongs with police. We've engaged them in our community programs, and that ongoing conversation is a huge part of this criminal justice reform. And so I applaud those officers in New York who stood by Kaepernick. Obviously, he doesn't have a job right now.
You and Anquan Boldin have stood shoulder to shoulder with this coalition, fighting for criminal justice reform, visiting Capitol Hill with a number of other NFL players. So I'm sure it did not catch you by surprise that Anquan Boldin retired at 36 to focus full time on his humanitarian efforts. You still obviously have a lot of football to be played. But Malcolm, do you think about how much longer you want to continue to play professional football as opposed to devote all your efforts to the work you're doing off the field? Do you ever think about the end of your career?
I want to use this stage as best I can. This stage opens up doors that, otherwise I would never have. And I'd hate to go back on my career and say that all I did was tackle people and play ball. I think my legacy is going to be way deeper than that. And I understand, that's one of the reasons that Anquan stepped away from the game, knowing that he's given everything he had to it. And at this point in time, he feels like his impact could be even bigger off the field.
But given how much you're doing on and off the field, day in and day out, we appreciate you finding some time to spend with us on the 6. Thanks, man.
I appreciate you guys having me.